La Chienne, or the bitch. Whoa. What a title, huh? La Chienne opens up on a Punch and Judy type puppet show, laying out our characters and explaining to us that despite what the first two puppets might have told you, what you are about to see is neither a drama nor a comedy. It contains no moral message and has nothing to prove. The characters are neither heroes nor villains. They're plain folk like you and me. Curtain up on an office party of amateur painter Maurice Legrand, a sad sack, seemingly slow-witted loser who is constantly belittled and berated by his overbearing wife, told that he can never live up to her first husband, who was killed during World War I. I think Richard Brody describes him best in his piece in The New Yorker. He says, Legrand is a wholly innocent who looks like an idiot and shuffles through life bowed and burdened, but speaks with a discerning, quietly sarcastic intelligence that stops at the insurmountable barrier of actual worldly experience. In effect, he's a sermon given a body, a pile of cliches about virtue and beauty that is infused with a soul and set into motion. What a guy. On his way home from the party, he runs into Lulu, a sex worker, and Didi, her pimp. The two set out to try and exploit Legrand by having Lulu seduce him.
Oh là là, tâche de te débrouiller avec ce mec-là, hein, ou sinon je te laisse tomber.
Time goes by, and we see that it worked. Lulu is now set up in an apartment paid for by Legrand with some sort of allowance which she pays to Didi. In an attempt to get even more money out of Legrand, Didi takes some of the paintings he's given to Lulu and establishes himself as the manager of a fictitious painter, Clara Wood. The whole enterprise itself is just another front for Didi to pimp Lulu out to high-paying art collectors. And now, remember when I said Legrand's wife, first husband, died in World War I? Turns out he didn't. He faked his death in an attempt to get away from his wife. He then tries to extort Legrand out of some money, saying he'll come forward as her husband and take her away from him. Little does he know that he just gave Legrand the coward's way out of his marriage, and Legrand tricks the husband into taking his wife back against his will, which frees up Legrand to finally be with Lulu. Uh-oh, Legrand finds out that Lulu is still with Didi, which enrages Didi, which in turn upsets Lulu so much that she lashes out at Legrand, who stabs her to death. Talk about an overreaction. Through some unfortunate timing, the crime gets pinned on Didi and he's put to death for it. Legrand is fired because he was stealing money from his day job to take care of Lulu, and we end up with him penniless, living on the streets while someone drives away, having just bought his self-portrait for what we can assume is a hefty amount of money. This has been called the start of what we know as noir, but to me, it's more the precursor to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Just a group of shallow, despicable people all manipulating one another for their own selfish purposes. This is a deeply cynical movie. I think made even more cynical by that opening speech telling us that the characters are neither heroes nor villains, they're plain folk like you and me. This is just what people are like. And these are terrible people, all of them. At one point, Legrand is arguing with his wife's former husband over who should have the woman. It's a very funny moment in the film. The cruel irony of the film is that, let's set aside the commentary that the film makes on the art world for a minute, Legrand could have sold his paintings himself. He could have been happy making a living doing that, and yet he is so obsessed with his own misery that he can't bring himself to do it. A really telling moment in the film for me is when, sitting next to an open window, there is a perfectly framed portrait of a mother cleaning with her child, and what is Legrand painting in the foreground? A self-portrait. The man is so self-involved and drowning in his own misery that it tips over into narcissism. I also love the parallels of the relationship between Didi and Lulu and Legrand. In a sense, the same thing is happening in each dynamic. Lulu is infatuated with Didi, and he uses that to get what he wants from her, while Legrand is infatuated with Lulu, and she uses that to get what she wants from him. They parrot each other in these two moments. Legrand doesn't want Lulu to leave, and he begs her. And then, later, Lulu doesn't want Didi to leave, and she says, we got a real hurt people situation going on here, which spirals out later when Didi rages at Lulu. Lulu takes it out on Legrand, who then violently murders her. And speaking of which, I'm not sure I have too many eloquent thoughts on it, but the film does feel a little misogynistic. The wife is a shrill, overbearing, nasty woman who ends up dead at the end, and the one time the sex worker stands up for herself, she's murdered. There might be some commentary in there that I'm just not picking up on, but it didn't feel like it. I'd be interested in hearing people's thoughts on that. Jean Renoir directed this film, and hot damn did he ever. There's some really impressive camera work going on here, from tracking shots to really interesting use of depth. There's this really striking handheld shot, something I have yet to see in a film from this time period, or if I have, it hasn't stuck in my brain like this one has. That is not only exciting, but I think really works for this moment when Didi is convincing Lulu to be even more brazen and aggressive with their art scam. This is a beautiful, thematically rich, important to cinema history film that I don't really enjoy watching. It feels so cruel and cynical. It reminds me a lot of the Dietrich Sternberg movie, The Blue Angel, which I love. And don't get me wrong, I think I love this film as well, but it makes me feel icky. And I think the difference is that that film says, here's a man in the world who makes bad choices, and this film seems to say, here's a bad world where people do bad things, which isn't in itself a bad thing. I just think it can take a lot out of you when you watch it. So you should absolutely watch it, but keep that in mind going in. And keep in mind that you can watch me talk about The Blue Angel here, or see how I rank the films 1930 right here. Thanks for watching, and go watch something old other than me.